Rebonjour, c'est reparti donc pour les échanges et les débats autour de l'hydrogène vert. On a vu tous les potentiels et les potentialités qui existent en la matière, que ce soit au Maroc ou à travers la planète et en particulier sur le continent. On a vu tous les enjeux liés aux débouchés, en termes d'application industrielle, en termes de protection de l'environnement et de réduction des gaz à effet de serre. Et on va évoquer maintenant, cet après-midi, avec nos panélistes et notre expert modérateur, les différents challenges qu'il faut relever dans le cadre du développement de l'hydrogène vert, les questions de coût, bien évidemment, mais les questions aussi de finalité, de portée en termes de développement, en termes de création d'emplois, en termes de sécurité aussi. Et pour ce faire, vous allez avoir la chance de suivre le débat qui va être animé par Monsieur Saïd Mouline, le directeur général de l'Agence marocaine de l'efficacité énergétique. Sous vos applaudissements, mesdames, messieurs. Mouline, je vous laisse la scène pour appeler vos panélistes et nous gratifier de votre immense expertise dont je ne me rassasie pas. C'est à vous.
Merci, Monsieur Dada. C'est avec grand plaisir que je me retrouve ici, dans cette ville magnifique, où lors de la COP22, nous avons eu un énorme programme pour l'économie verte, et où déjà nous avons parlé d'hydrogène à l'époque. Nous sommes très heureux et merci bien sûr, au World Power 2X d'être aujourd'hui dans cette salle où nous avons eu beaucoup d'événements, parce que ce que nous disions il y a quelques années se concrétise, et je dirais même aujourd'hui s'accélère. I will switch to English and to say to everyone, very welcome again in Marrakesh, and to say that we are very glad to be here today, because in this city, a few years ago, we were organizing the COP22, and in Marrakesh, we had many discussions and many events linked to the green economy and to link it to the hydrogen economy. A few years ago, we were talking about a dream. What you did today and this World Power 2X, I would like to congratulate all the organizers, because we are very glad and show that never give up. Even we had 2 years to wait for this event. We were talking about this event since 2 years now. We are organizing it, and everyone is really involved. And what's happening today, not only on climate change, but also on geopolitical issues, we are glad that it's clear today that this is the right way to have and the right path. I would like, first of all, to say that this session 3 will be about renewable energy integration and all the challenges that are today involved. As it was discussed this morning, and you had your presentation, many ministers from different countries were saying that the market is here. They're ready to import green hydrogen. We had a chance in this country that a few years ago, the vision from the king gave priority to renewable energy and energy efficiency. More than 10 years ago, when renewables were more expensive, the Kingdom of Morocco, I can remind you that a Moroccan is emitting 7 times less CO2 than a European. And even that, we decided to have a strong proactive policy in this green economy. At this time, we are looking that, of course, we need to look how we can develop this new approach linked to green hydrogen. And that's why the cluster green hydrogen and with Erezen and with the Mohammed VI Polytechnic University, this event is organized today. And we are very glad to have this cluster today, because all the partners, public, private, universities, are concerned. And they are part of this cluster today. We need all that to reach our objectives. So I won't talk, because we have 10 people who are going to present and experts who's going to talk about what's going on. And I would like to invite on the first, because we'll have 2 rounds in this event, I would like to invite Mr. Genoun, Hamza Genoun.
Under your applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Genoun, being with us. And I'm glad that a company, a private company. So in this session, we'll have actors from the private sector, from the public sector, but also from the academic sector and the R&D. I would like, Mr. Genoun is from Nareva, a big actor, private Moroccan actor, today playing a huge role in this field. Mr. Mika Mered, member of the steering committee of the MEDEF, and also in the academic. Thank you very much for your presence here, knowing that you came from abroad and you managed to be here physically. Thank you very much for this. Mr. Ali Zerwali, Mazen, of course. Thank you, Mr. Ali Zerwali, and Mr. Stefan Gobert, the Chief Strategy, Innovation, and Customer Experience of NG. Thank you very much. So it will be the first round, and I would like to say that we have some few questions for all of you. You'll have 5 minutes to do a presentation. Some of you have a presentation with the PowerPoint that will be showed here, but just remind that we have only 5 minutes everyone, and because of the timing that we had already changed this morning, we're talking about the state of the art for Power2X, how we can reach those goals and those challenges, concerning the costs, concerning the capacity building, concerning the jobs creation, all what needs to be done today to reach. We heard this morning, someone talked about $2 per kilogram for hydrogen. Someone talked about 2 cents per kilowatt hour for the renewables to have competitive green hydrogen. We heard also that this year, green hydrogen are cheaper than gray hydrogen because of the actual context. Of course, we have to be clear on that, and we'd like to hear from you. And I will start with you. Mr. Genoun, please, you'll give us the point concerning your strategy, because you're involved in production with renewables, and to give us some information how we can still decrease the price of renewables and how P2X can be developed in this way. Mr. Genoun.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your introduction. Very pleased to be here with you, and I would like to warmly thank the organizer for this wonderful event. Maybe before diving into the topic, just a few words about Nareva. So Nareva is a developer, long-term investor and operator active in the energy sector and water cycle management sector. It's a subsidiary of the Pan-African Investment Fund, Almada Group. It has a portfolio of about 3.6 gigawatt capacity, out of which 2/3 is renewable, and which has been developed with our European and Asian partners. Now, the integration of renewable energy is a very large and complex topic. I will try and share a few thoughts which hopefully will fuel the discussions, driven mainly by 3 main questions. The first one is, why do we need to integrate more and more renewable energy into the electrical system and into the energy-related sectors more generally? What are the means that are available to allow that and even increase and accelerate the integration of renewables? And finally, what is the role that Power2X could play? And more importantly, what are the key success factors for it to really deliver its promises? So renewable energy are set to play a major role in the energy transition. And the chart on the right is quite striking. It's produced by IRENA. and it's on the annual CO2 emissions projected to 2050. It shows that despite the efforts that have been deployed, we haven't yet reached a strong tipping point of reduction of CO2 emissions. In fact, if we would like to remain well below the 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, we'll have to reduce the emissions by 70%. Now, this could be achieved by energy efficiency, by the electrification of heat and transport, and also by massive integration of renewable energy. So by 2015, this means that renewable capacity, the total renewable capacity will have to be almost at 15 terawatt capacity, which is 60% of the total generation capacity that would be installed. Now, in order to achieve these targets, there are a number of challenges that we need to overcome. To effectively integrate renewable energy, we need to ensure flexibility throughout all the sectors of the energy system, from generation, transport, transmission, distribution, and more on the demand side as well. We also need to cope with the complexity, the operational complexity of the system. And finally, there are a number of sectors that will be very difficult to decarbonize, either because the technology is yet emerging or because the cost is prohibitive. And we can mention here cement and steel, which represents about 14% of the total CO2 emissions. Now, if we agree on this diagnosis and targets, what are the means that allows to add flexibility to the energy system? Now we can see here that this chart, conceptual charts, shows the cost level of each of the options that is offered today, and the share of variable energy, renewable energy, that could be integrated into the system. Today, the technical solution always exists. The trade-off will be on the economic side. So there are roughly, besides the extension reinforcement of grid, there are 3 types of flexibility: on the supply side, on the demand side, and storage, flexibility through energy storage. On the demand side, it includes demand response or the aggregation of distributed energy sources. Retrofitting existing thermal units could also provide flexibility by allowing to reduce their minimum load and therefore reduce the curtailment that is rising from renewables energy. The energy storage also allows a very high share of renewable energy, but is still costly and costlier than having new flexible power plants. But in order to integrate massively renewables, sector coupling is what will effectively integrate buildings, transport, industry into the power system. So I will focus now on the power to X and hydrogen as a key vector, and delivering effectively this integration of renewable energy. Very briefly on this slide, so we can see here that hydrogen is indispensable, and in order to achieve our objective with the projected annual demand for hydrogen of 660 million tons in 2050, this means that hydrogen needs to be adopted in sectors in which it's almost absent today. So 80% of that demand will come from new uses of hydrogen in 2050. And hydrogen as a fuel will be critical in the decarbonization of heavy industries such as chemical or steel, heavy duty road transport, shipping, aviation, and obviously the power sector by providing seasonal storage. Now, today, there is an unprecedented momentum, both on political and business side, on hydrogen, because the government commitments for decarbonization are creating a market and a clear momentum. There are challenges to overcome, on which I will come later, but the technology is mature and needs to be deployed if we manage to overcome these challenges. So I'll finish on this slide. So there are a number of factors that needs to, or key success factor. I chose here to mention what I believe are the most important one. The first one and foremost is the reduction, or the cost reduction. Now, this comes from continuous improvement and innovation on the technology side, but it also comes from high load factor and low electricity cost. And Morocco has a clear competitive edge with regards to that. The second key factor that we need to address is mitigating the risks that we have for the hydrogen project, considering the high uncertainty on the demand side and the complexity of the value chain, by providing the necessary guarantees, financing, and the adequate regulatory framework for hydrogen scale up. We need also to achieve scale, which comes with structuring partnerships and building up the capacities for the key components, in particular the electrolyzer. And finally, I think we need to recognize that the scale of the challenge requires cooperation at global, with global action and replicating the successes that we see in other countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gunun. You highlighted also the potential to enable massive renewable energy integration because of hydrogen. Thank you for that. And I would like to mention that also we are here in Africa, and we can have African companies today involved in this energy transition. And Nareva is one example. I'm sure that many opportunities for African companies also to look at this sector and to look at how African actors can be also involved. Because of the timing, I would like to change a little bit the program and to give the floor to Mika Mered. You're a member of the MEDEF. You're involved in the academic. I know you have to take a plane. So please give us some information about also this approach, why challenge also is in capacity building. We need to have young people or men and women involved in this energy transition. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director General. Thank you very much, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, for being here with us this afternoon. Basically, so I'm just not to correct anything, but I'm not exactly a member of MEDEF, you'll understand. Actually, just like Valérie Ruiz Domingo, whom you've heard earlier today, I am part of the steering committee of the French National Task Force on Hydrogen, which is co-led by MEDEF International and by France Hydrogène, which is the equivalent of the green H2 cluster in France. But my real job is to lecture on hydrogen markets and geopolitics at Sciences Po, HEC, and now here at UMCSP, at the Mohammed VI Polytechnic University. And basically, just in a nutshell, what I'm going to try to do in the next 5 minutes is to tell you what I try to teach my students in 24 to 30 hours. Is that fine as a challenge? So very quickly, the problem that I think that we have when we frame the discussion around hydrogen markets is that we tend to basically frame it purely and solely on economic merits. Should we invest in the off-takers, in the usage, in the applications? Should we invest in the production aspect more? Which one of those two will kickstart the market? And then when we start having these discussions, it always ends in the same way at every single hydrogen conference I go to. It's a chicken and egg thing. Actually, I would tend to disagree.
I don't think it's a chicken and egg thing. I think that what we have as a problem is we're framing the discussion in the wrong way because we only look at it from a market perspective when we should also, and I would argue primarily, focus on a policy-centered approach to this hydrogen market. The first reason why I argue this, and this is why I teach my students, so if you don't agree with me, feel free to come to my classes to provide a counter view to my students. So basically the first thing is that when we talk about hydrogen in a national context, the thing we tend to overlook is the saleability of this perspective itself. If you come to France and you talk about integrating wind power in a hydrogen value chain, well, depending on where you are in France, you're going to get people that are going to tell you, you're a crook. What you're advocating for, it's an absolute disaster for our economy and or for the planet and or for our territories and environment. So you'll get that. And as a result, if you go to that countryside and you tell these guys, hey, I'm going to do it anyway because my data shows it makes sense economically speaking, and they end up telling you, well, we don't care if it works as a market. We just don't want to see these giant windmills. We just don't want to have this ammonia plant or whatever. We just don't want to have it here. Basically, what I'm talking about is the not in my backyard NIMBY effect. This thing, well, in hydrogen, it matters. First of all, so saleability matters. Saleability to the end users, yes, of course, but saleability as well to the people who are going to live around the production areas. If you leave France and you go to Morocco or Mauritania or Namibia or let alone Ethiopia, and you say, well, I'm going to build this $30 billion hydrogen project thanks to renewables with an electrolyzer which is going to require water. What are the people nearby going to tell you? Do you think that the first thing they're going to tell you is, great, more jobs? Well, it might. But oftentimes you will find, and investors will be surprised by this, oddly enough, people will tell you, well, why are you investing in channeling water one way or another to produce this hydrogen when you don't even invest or not enough invest in providing water for our communities? Here we have a second saleability issue that is particularly important here in the African discussion, less so in the Middle East, but in Africa, it's very important. So that's the first and second element. Saleability is key. Then another thing that's key beyond scalability is safety. Because if you tell people, well, I'm going to kickstart a hydrogen economy to the point where we're going to become a hydrogen society, because some politicians say that, maybe not in Morocco, but elsewhere they do. Well, basically the problem you're going to have is people asking you, okay, if we put all our eggs in the wrong basket in this energy transition, and we only realize it in 30 years, after 2 investment cycles, what are we going to do? And that's going to prevent people from projecting themselves into this hydrogen economy or hydrogen society. So here, you can show them that safety of the whole value chain is all right. You can try to tell them that you're going to create jobs and so on, but at the end of the day, once again, we're going back to the saleability and this political saleability issue. Then third thing, sovereignty. And that's a debate that we've had in Europe for the past few months, not to say years, between France and Germany. Germany, and we've heard this morning, or Belgium or the Netherlands say, we're going to import hydrogen from elsewhere. Other countries, partner countries. In France, well, we've got big companies that are part of the task force that we are steering together with Valérie and some others that are saying, yes, we should develop these import value chains. But many others, and the government in France in particular, is now saying, well, we should not import. Because hydrogen is maybe the one opportunity in the 21st century that France or other countries like France can have to actually regain some control, regain some power, regain some sovereignty on their energy supply. So basically, we don't want to import. And that's going to be a purely political issue as an investor. If you don't look at it, if you can't factor it in your business model, you're going to lose at least one big actor in Europe. So sovereignty is a big issue. In Germany, they don't say that because they bet on hedging with different partners. And that's also a strategy that's valid. But let's go now to the final point, security. Security, not just energy security, but even for hydrogen project developers, non-traditional aspects of security that also are political inherently and that impact your projects and your investments. For example, let's talk about workforce security. If you develop a multi-billion-dollar project in the country where there's no world-class university to actually develop an ecosystem or an industry, well, it's not going to work. You can claim you're going to invest $40 billion in this project, but it's never going to fly. And 10 years after, you're going to be like, yeah, well, it was a great project on paper. Yeah, of course. So having world-class universities and ecosystems with people that do the research, people who train kids or people far in their career to switch from maybe the fossil fuels industry to hydrogen, for example, or to ammonia, or whatever, methanol, whatever you like. That's absolutely key. And I'm going to end on this. In Africa and in the Mediterranean area at the moment, there are only a handful of countries that have actually either thought about all this and factored them into their hydrogen strategy, or better yet, anticipated them and included them very early in the game when they started developing their renewables strategy, way earlier than hydrogen. And Morocco is one of them. And I would push even further. I think at this point in the world, when I look at the 69 countries, last time I counted, that was 2 weeks ago, 69 countries in the world that either have a strategy, a roadmap, an action plan for hydrogen or are preparing one. So out of the 69 countries, there are maybe only 3 or 4 countries that have the same advantages, the same benefits to the global economy vis-à-vis hydrogen that Morocco can provide. And that is why, if I had only one message, and I'm running out of time already, if I only had one message for you here in the room and online, is this: don't lose the momentum you've created with the Noor plan and with the hydrogen strategy. Don't lose it. Because when you lose it, well, you find out that others have learned and copied the good things that you did here. And you are not just pioneers in hydrogen, you are leading the way forward. In Spain, they don't just look at Morocco as a contender, a competition. They also look at what you've done, what Mr. Iken did, etc., as a model that they should apply. In Africa, they look at you as well, and they think it's a model. You're going to see that when you talk later on in the day, maybe with our Namibian friends, or maybe with our Kenyan friends, or maybe with our Egyptian friends at COP27 later on this year. You are being a model. So don't lose the momentum. I hear there are some weak signals that the momentum is not lost right now, but there's less support than there used to. Be careful, because you're actually on a gold mine, and not just for Europe, but for the whole world, and particularly for Africa. And if you don't succeed, in 10 years' time, people will be like, oh, this hydrogen thing, well, it was a hype. The bubble has burst. And basically, it's the same thing that what happened in hydrogen just 20 years ago, or in the 1970s, or even in the early 20th century. It's just a hype. No, it's not just a hype. And you are leading it, so keep leading it. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. I can assure you that one of the reasons of this event today is not to miss this momentum. And it's why we believe, and as we mentioned, stability, safety, sovereignty, security, all those points are important. And we had this experience with the renewable energy 10 years ago, with the strategy, with the vision, with the agencies dedicated, with the regulation. So it's with industry integration, with jobs creation. So when you have all that, that's what we believe in, and that's why we believe that hydrogen will be also the next challenge for us. And you mentioned what's happening also. One point very important, many industries are looking for decarbonization, and OCP is one of them. OCP wants to be carbon neutral in 2040. They are already using 88% of the electricity coming from renewables. They extracting the heat from the chemistry to desalination, and also they're looking for green ammonia. That's why the link is here. So I'm sure that many opportunities are here today, and thank you very much. You can stay with us until the time when you have to leave, but thank you very much for this presentation. Monsieur Gobert, Mr. Stephen Gobert, sorry, you're from NG. NG is a big actor also here in this country, but also you had this experience, especially on innovation. And what is today your point of view concerning this question about the challenges linked to renewables and hydrogen?
Hi, thanks for the question, and good to see you all today. It's a great pleasure to be back in Morocco and see some of familiar faces and new faces that I'd be happy to discuss with you anytime. Just come and catch me. It's a real pleasure to talk again a little bit about NG and what we are better like that, and what we are doing in this field for quite some time. NG is the international utility player headquartered in Paris, France, and it's obvious that for us in the frame of the energy transition, we started to look into the hydrogen economy as far as 2015. So I'll just go back quickly into our ambitions in that field, and I think my colleague just briefed you, but for those that have missed it, and if you are not too sleepy after the lunch, I'd just like to remind that our purpose is really to act to accelerate the transition towards a carbon neutral economy through reduced energy consumption. So energy efficiency is obviously a key factor in that respect, and providing environmentally friendly solutions to our customer, embarking our employees or stakeholders, shareholders, and our clients, trying to find and to bridge. Finally, we believe that today we can really bridge economic solution with ecological solutions as well. Our mission in renewable hydrogen, because this is what we are concerned at NG, only renewable hydrogen is something that is driving us today, and we'd like to become a leader in the field. And we developed our own internal capacities to look in the different options that the different markets and geographies are offering to develop large-scale hydrogen production capacities. And this we are investigating today across the world. A very clear kind of island schematic here that shows what we are targeting at NG. Obviously, the geography is key. We talked a lot about renewables. We're talking about renewable hydrogen. So the hotspots of the world are known now. Morocco is definitely high on the list and very highly ranked. We also like to find places where there's a local usage of hydrogen to kickstart the local economy. So local hubs with off-takers is something that we are monitoring. We have a great example in South Africa where we are converting huge mining trucks to work on energy, on hydrogen instead of diesel. Those big trucks are consuming up to 160 liters of diesel per hour. So we found that local usage produced on site and used immediately is bringing already, without any form of subsidy, value to the customer with a huge talent to decarbonize quickly. We also like to develop multi-usage platforms where we can use hydrogen not only for single purpose, but also for the mobility and energy transition, for example. And obviously, something very important is the use and reuse of local infrastructure, gas network, where tests have been done with ENGIE, where we can re-inject hydrogen within the gas infrastructure, something very important because we're not here to build a new infrastructure to push hydrogen globally. That would be nonsense. This is a brief schematic for you to understand what ENGIE is doing, but basically we are energy providers, so we are developing renewable capacity. We also have long experience in desalination, and in these parts of the world, desalination will be key to bring water to the electrolysis system to produce hydrogen, and then storage, and finally distribute it to the end users that have been identified clearly today. The industry, how to abate industries, steel and cement factories, as my colleague Hamza mentioned, heavy mobility, long haul. We are not here to compete with individual electric cars because they are very rarely used, but the mobility that is constant, at least in the logistic, for example, or long distance trains, trucks, is more appropriate. These are our objectives. Just to put you into perspective, we are targeting to have 4 gigawatts of installed capacity by 2030 with a long distribution network, 700 kilometers, ready to accept hydrogen, and also continue development of refueling hydrogen stations. So these are some of the ongoing projects we are developing at the moment, or pre-developing around 30 large projects worldwide in the hotspots that you can recognize. So what about the hydrogen application in Morocco? I wanted to inform you, I'm monitoring in Middle East and Northern African countries, and there's a lot of momentum today around hydrogen, green hydrogen in the regions. A lot of announcement, roadmaps being drawn, and it's clear there's a regional competition that is emerging. Saudi Arabia, the rest of the GCC countries with very low cost of electricity are there to compete, and pressing ahead to develop a large exports hub. And definitely Morocco needs to claim its space. A lot of announcements have been made, pilots are ongoing, and at ENGIE we believe that with our long-lasting partners that we have in Morocco, we've been investing in the country for many years, and as at the image of actually all utilities, we need to transform and rotate our portfolio. And it's the right time to invest in countries that are offering all the points that I mentioned earlier. And Morocco is one of the definitely key candidates in this region to compete with the big brothers that you can see here on the map. So strong potential for renewables. Our dear friends from Nareva are monitoring this quietly. We are operating also together a wind farm in southern Morocco. 13 place globally for renewable attractiveness, which is great. You can see 2 maps. One is for solar, one is for wind. Definitely the country is very well placed and has extremely good conditions to load the electrolyzer. So for you to understand, hydrogen, cost of hydrogen is mainly driven by cost of electricity. So one of the rules of the game today is to find the lowest cost of electricity you can have. That's why you hear there's so many forms of subsidies today, because it accounts for around 60–65% of cost of production of hydrogen. And definitely with such good wind and solar and good combination of both, you can have a very good load factor at a good price in Morocco. This table shows also a bit of a comparison between the different countries, and definitely Morocco is leading the ranking with what we can anticipate, a competitive price of around $2 per kilo by 2025. We see big projects such as NEOM in Saudi Arabia, big projects coming up also online in the UAE. There will be maybe a little bit cheaper, but all within the same range. But Morocco offers other advantages that it's very close to Europe and can probably tap the European market faster than the further Egyptian and Middle Eastern country. One more point, this map shows the demand versus the production capacity, and we can see that Morocco can really play a leading role in the renewable ammonia export, which is the carrier that we all have identified as the first low-hanging fruit, because it's something that we know that we are trading today already, and that it's needed. The transition from Morocco to supply the demand from Europe is quite obvious. The competing region is the Middle East, with a lot of projects, as I mentioned, on stream, and Australia and Latin America, which are two other hubs that are also targeting export. We probably more concentrate on the Asian market, which gives a huge opportunity for Morocco to play a role in green ammonia export. And with the right partners, this would give an international exposure to the kingdom. And green chemicals, as you can see and you have heard and you'll continue to hear tomorrow, is really gaining momentum to act against climate change. And at NG, we can act as developer, integrator, operator of these projects. We bring expertise in renewables, but also more recently, we also have our first commissioning of hydrogen plants. So we can bring all these expertise to Morocco and continue invest in the country for the future. I've identified here some key challenges for the Moroccan market to become a green ammonia hub, for example. Offtake, we always talk about offtaker. I'll be glad to have an offtaker with us today on the panel. But definitely we should be focused on the EU consortia, local industries if needed. The infrastructure is required, water resource, more desalination plants. We are developing a desalination plant as we speak in Morocco. Electricity, grid connection, all these technical aspects have to be tackled. The transport and storage of H2, if it's through pipeline, use salt caverns. These are things that today we are studying in Morocco to see potential of the country. And finally, governmental support is really needed, and it's huge. The liaison between off-takers and producers is very important. We're talking about export bilateral connections between countries. It's obvious it's very different than classic power generation projects when you produce for your local context. Here we are all targeting collaboration between countries, between regions within the same countries, between industries, and that's key. So if there's something to remember, is that collaboration in that market would be really needed. Implementation of hydrogen policy and regulatory framework is something that is not to be underestimated. We still need to classify hydrogen, what it is, what source of energy, how this can be produced locally, how this can be traded. There's a lot of work on the framework itself, and I'd like to conclude on that. I hope I've highlighted a little bit of the challenges that this new economy and market can bring. And we are here because we believe that Morocco is a great candidate to unlock this quickly and bring its part to the decarbonization of and tackle all our objectives for the energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gobet. I can assure you that not only the government, but also the private sector today are involved in this strategy. And I would like to mention that we had this vision more than 10 years ago, and Ali Zawadi will talk about what happened in Mazen. Huge program, huge realization. I can remind you, 10 years ago, many countries were saying we're going to reach these objectives. Few countries managed to have these realizations. We are one of them. Madame la Ministre said this morning, few countries are in the 1.5 degrees pathway today. Morocco is one of them. The Kingdom of Morocco today is in the right pathway for decarbonization, for decreasing greenhouse gases. So we are very glad that all the magnific jobs made by Mazen these last 10 years, especially when you saw, and everyone is talking about Ouarzazate, but really we had a chance to have today this experience because it will help to be much more competitive in the future and much more active for this transition. Ali, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dear Mr. Moulin, for the transition. And so indeed, we experienced in 2008 exactly the same situation that we are experiencing now. And at that time, it created a momentum for the development, the initiation of the Moroccan strategy regarding renewable energy. So just remind that in 2008, the price of the oil barrel reached $148. And this is what pushed Morocco, under the vision of His Majesty the King Mohammed VI, to go forward with the development heavily of renewable energy and to increase the part of renewable energy in our share. Of course, we are blessed with tremendous resources of renewable energy. And here you have a map that is summarizing the kind of important resources in renewable energy, either from solar and wind, that Morocco has. So this is why we decided to have a first target, is to increase the share of renewable energy to up to 42% by 2020. And now today we have developed more than 4,000 gigawatts of renewable energy. The new objective is to reach at least 52% by 2030. So what does it mean, 52%? It means that we need to add 6,000 of new capacity in our electrical mix. And this capacity, I would like here to underline that it doesn't take into account all the needs that could be related to e-mobility, new needs, to the production of hydrogen, or to the export of green electrons or green electricity. So the demand, the market, and the perspectives are very important. And I will come back to that a little bit later to show you what kind of business opportunities could be exploited here in Morocco in the field of renewable energy. So having mentioned the targets in terms of national objectives, we are aware that there is a momentum that we need to take advantage of. And this is why we look also beyond our borders. So we have already interconnections with Algeria and with Spain, and we are studying to extend the interconnection with Spain. We are considering new interconnection with Portugal, and we are also studying in a very advanced stage an interconnection with Mauritania. That will allow Morocco to play the role of hub of electricity between the south and the north. And because not only Morocco, but also the countries for the north of Mediterranean Sea are conscious of that, we have engaged a discussion with them since 2016. And this initiative is called the Sustainable Electricity Trade Roadmap. So what does it mean? It means that we are working together to create one common market between Morocco, Portugal, Spain, France, and Germany that will allow to trade green electrons between these 5 countries. In other words, it means that a private off-taker in one of these countries could be able and will be able to purchase green electrons from one of the other 4 countries. And the binding agreements that have been agreed between the 5 countries and validated by the 5 countries will be signed in the very few weeks. It will give a very important market to all the private actors that would like to produce green electrons and to export green electrons. And the specific market is called the cross-border green corporate PPAs. Of course, another opportunity that Morocco is aware of is the green hydrogen. I heard many countries and many conferences addressing this topic of green hydrogen. And I would like to say that according to studies from IRENA, IEA, World Bank, and so on, so it's expected that Morocco could capture between 4 to 8% of the worldwide market for the power to X market. And because I agree, there is a momentum that we need to exploit and that we don't have to miss. So Morocco has created a national commission of green hydrogen that is gathering stakeholders from the private sector, from the academia, from R&D, and from the public sector to work together toward a unique and a common vision, and to see how we can create synergies between us in order to move forward in the field of green hydrogen and to take the lead in this field. We also have developed a national roadmap that was initiated by IRISN, Fraunhofer, and now we have a better view about what the market is requesting in terms of demand to be captured by Morocco. And I will mention specific figures in the next slide. In order to be at the forefront of this subject, we also are working on very specific projects, developing one project of 100 megawatt electrolyzer with Germany, working with Portugal, working with the Netherlands on a very important project with Port of Rotterdam and Vopak to produce green hydrogen and to export it to Port of Rotterdam. And we are not working on this project only on the production side, but we are working on all the value chain. Let's stop a moment on all the value chain. There is a figure that we don't repeat enough in all the conferences. The specificity of green hydrogen is that the cost of the product represents less than 1/3 of the final cost. You have all mentioned that there is a target of €2 per kilogram of hydrogen in Morocco. But when you project this green molecule of hydrogen, for example, in Port of Rotterdam, the cost increases to €6. Why? Because the cost of logistic and transportation and transformation represents the 2/3 of the final cost. Do you know many products where the cost of transport and logistic represents the 2/3 of the final cost? I don't know many products that are suffering from this specificity. So this is why we are also aware that there is a disruption that Morocco needs to take advantage of. And the disruption is that for many heavy industries concerned by the CBAM, I mean steel, I mean glass, aluminum, agro, cement, they need also, and they are thinking to relocate near the sites of production of green hydrogen, as it represents a big share of the energy that they consume and the cost of operation. So there is also an opportunity of Morocco to not be only a net exporter of green molecules, but also to attract heavy industries, to increase the national demand, to create jobs, and to initiate an important dynamic, economical, industrial, and social dynamic. And this is what we are also thinking about in Morocco in order to see how we can attract these heavy industries, and many of them are already here in Morocco seeking for lands to produce green hydrogen and to set up some factories. So this is a kind of also perspective that we are working on. R&D, it was mentioned, and the Moroccan Greece hydrogen cluster was also mentioned. So I wanted to give you just an overview, not only about the opportunities of producing green hydrogen, producing green molecules for the national demand and exporting it, but also the opportunity that is created by this new dynamic of green molecules and green hydrogen, and this energy transition to locate in Morocco heavy industries. And maybe this is not just an energy, this is not only an energy transition, but this is the way to make it a just transition for Morocco and the just transition for Africa. We are the continent that represents 20% of the population of the world. We are the continent that is contributing to less than 3% of the world gas emission. So to be a just transition, we need to leverage this transition in order to make it a new industrial and economical dynamic for our country and the continent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zawadi. We are also the continent with the 600 million citizens without electricity today. So huge opportunities, but also huge challenges. And that's why at the same time, we are looking for energy in Africa. We should look also of the use of this energy in the continent. Thank you for what you said. You said we're talking about stability, proximity, also because we have this exceptional renewable energy resources potential, but also PPPs. Public-private, all our projects were done through public-private partnership. And of course, for that, you need confidence between partners. You need transparency in the contract. You need governance to manage that, because all those projects, it's for visibility for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So for all investors, we have the chance here to have the visibility because of vision at the highest level of the state, and because we have this strong proactive policy for this strategy for sustainable development today. Thank you very much.
If it's possible,
yes, Ali.
Just to put the slide, the perspective of the market while we are talking, because I forgot to present it.
Yeah.
And it's an extract from the green hydrogen national roadmap, just for the assistance to look at what was studied in terms of potential market in Morocco.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sila? Okay, thank you very much. We can look at all the potential and for export also. Bravo. Very precise. And I would like to say that we are glad because of the time running. I think we'll have some video coming from Mr. Amin Barada, who's the co-founder of Terabase Energy. I don't know if they can.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Okay, thank you. I think we had some delays, and thank you for your patience. And we are glad to hear you today. And please, the floor is yours, Mr. Barada.
Thank you, Mr. Moulin, for the introduction. I would like also to thank the organizers for accommodating my online intervention here. I was planning to be there in person, but unfortunately and fortunately, my wife and I are expecting a baby, so I had to stay here in California in order to be able to take care of that situation. But we're pleased to be amongst you today. Today, I'd like to talk about Terabase, introduce our company, and then talk about all the activities that we're doing and how that pertains to green hydrogen, even the industry sector, and also Morocco. Just a logistical question. Are the slides being presented in advance, or is it, am I expected to share my slides from my screen? I'm not able to see the slides. So I can present them directly from my screen, and then we can go from here.
You can share.
Okay, sounds good. Are you able to see it okay here?
Yeah, it's okay.
Wonderful, thank you. So Terrabase, we are a fairly new name in the solar sector, but we come from SunPower and First Solar for most of us. So we have a lot of industry experience, and we'll talk more about that. But as we have learned quite a bit in utility scale solar, we are now bringing all that know-how from SunPower and First Solar and bringing it to a more modernized approach. And we're developing, as such, an interconnected digital and automation platform to reduce the cost and increase the scalability of utility scale solar. So we were founded in 2019 by a few of us from SunPower. We have deep industry experience, 30 gigawatts. We're active in over 10 countries, covering 15 gigawatts. We have an online platform, which we'll discuss a little bit more about that. And then we have 3,000 companies registered in it. And along the way, we've made 2 acquisitions from First Solar and a SCADA power plant control team, and then their Plant Predict, which is a software for simulation of solar prediction. And then we've been raising venture capital, $15 million so far, and then we'll be announcing, hopefully in 2 weeks, another round, which will be our Series B. So I'd like to talk today about the state of the art in the large scale solar industry. As Mr. Stefan mentioned, and as is well known now, the cost of solar or renewable electricity represents about half, 50 to 70% of the cost of the green hydrogen molecule. So it is a huge lever that impacts costs and is therefore one that needs to be further improved and cost reduced. As you'll see today, to meet climate zero emissions goals by 2030, the solar industry needs to scale to about 630 gigawatts per year of installation. The current methods of doing so are actually not scalable. So solar PV is not scalable at these levels needed to achieve climate goals. So we need a breakthrough in scalability and a breakthrough in costs, which is kind of the impetus of our company here. At the same time, green industry is calling for a very competitive cost of electricity. We have heard today, the panel mentioned costs of 2 cents a kilowatt hour, euros or dollars. But if you look at this graph, which was prepared by the IEA Global Hydrogen Review, yes, you can start to have green-based ammonia and green-based steel compete with fossil fuel-based ammonia and steel at the prices of 2.5, 3 cents a kilowatt hour. But to really achieve a deep decarbonization and to really achieve mass adoptions of renewable green-based industry, you should really be targeting a number that is much lower than that, around 1 cent a kilowatt hour. And that's the level of pricing that we believe will be driving massive adoption of renewable energy across ammonia and steel. Albeit it's very aggressive, but it is the level that's needed. So how do we approach that? At the same time, the industry is actually headed in the wrong direction in terms of cost. Many projects are being delayed around the world, primarily due to recent disruptions in cost due to supply chain disruptions, but also in the fact that balance of systems costs, meaning anything that's not PV module related, have actually stagnated or increased in terms of cost, due to commodity pricing and labor inflation increase and shortage in the numbers of EPCs that are able to build. So this chart reflects that about the US market. And what we're seeing is that if we want to meet the climate goals by 2030 or beyond, we need a 50% cost reduction in the BOS costs, the non-hardware costs. And that so far hasn't been tackled as an innovation company. And just to illustrate the point, many of us know about solar plants, but a few of us have actually seen behind the curtain how they get built. And you'll see on site a lot of manual touch, manual construction techniques, a lot of workers carrying heavy modules above shoulder height, working long shifts. These are methods that are not necessarily scalable. Poor inventory management, manual construction tracking methods with whiteboarding inside trailers, and then inadequate quality inspection. So a new approach is clearly needed. And this is where we think, in order to achieve green parity, where we would describe that as super low cost, 1 cent kilowatt hour green power, and then associated with that $1 kilogram green hydrogen. To achieve this parity with fossil fuel based, a new approach is required. We believe actually Morocco is really well suited for that. We need to combine the following elements. Scale, obviously, as was mentioned by Mr. Hamza Gnoun, 15 terawatts, to deliver economies of scale. We need to combine digitization and field automation to lower the power of costs for solar energy, and this could be also applicable to wind. We need to also lower the cost of hydrogen caused by both hybridizing better in terms of sizing, but also finding the right sites. And Morocco is very well suited for that, but primarily by reducing the capex of electrolyzers. And we are partnering with some companies here in California that are doing just that extremely well. And then last but not least, and this was mentioned by Mr. Ali Zarwali, the industrial co-localization is an important element to reduce supply chain costs, but also logistics costs. Logistics costs can be impactful at shipping, but also shipping offtake, but also important in impacting the costs of how solar power plants are getting built. Recent supply chain disruptions and logistics have increased the cost of logistics by a factor of 3. So this is an important impact. So what is Terabase doing? We're developing a digital and automation platform for terawatt scale solar. I won't go too much into the details of it, but we're developing an ecosystem that will enable digitization of development stage activities, construction stage activities, and also operational stage activities to break the inefficiencies that are happening between the handoff in between each step and to speed up the development and construction stages. But most importantly, we're automating the construction of how solar plants are being built. And to that effect, we are essentially developing a field factory approach to be able to assemble trackers, PV modules, and move them quickly to their final location on site. Just as I mentioned, if you go into a factory of how PV modules are being built, whether in Europe or US or in China, you'll see that it's very automated advanced methods. But as soon as you come to the field for construction, it really is a situation that needs to be modernized. So our approach would be to develop this construction automation, which has been deployed in the US, enabling more shifts, 24/7 type of construction, which would speed up the construction, lower the cost, and unlock a whole bunch of other benefits around management of labor shortage, safety, environmental footprint, and improved quality. We're at the same time developing hybridization tools, both for modeling and controls. So we have tools that enable you to size PV and electrolyzers capacity to really optimize power plants capacity sizing to deliver the lowest cost of hydrogen for that. This can be upgraded to wind, include wind, storage, even to ammonia. And this is an important factor because optimizing and sizing is one of the key drivers for being able to better utilize electrolyzers, which are capex intensive and therefore can deliver a better cost of hydrogen. And finally, industry co-localization with renewable power. Morocco has a particular position and potential to lead in the ability to deliver both a green power and a low-cost power, co-located with an industry that can be both benefiting from those two factors to be able to deliver either back circularly to its local industry or to ship internationally finished products that are green-based, like green ammonia, fertilizers, polymers, and others. And we believe Morocco is really well suited for this, particularly because of the renewable energy resource, but also because of the industrial policy that is being pushed forward, and aligning those two can really position Morocco in that regard. So us as an American company based in California, we are federating a little bit of this conversation among US manufacturers. And we'd be happy to talk more about that in detail. So with that, I'd like to thank the audience for your attention. I'm mindful of time, trying to keep it on track here. Please feel free to contact me at this contact information. I also would like to mention briefly that while I couldn't make it in person, my colleague, Mahesh Morjaria, which is moderating the session tomorrow, is present in Marrakesh. And so he'd be happy to also follow up with you on these conversations. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Loretta. And one point we can add, you mentioned the costs and how we can decrease these costs, but also one point is that markets, industrials don't like volatility. Because today we need to know the price for the next 5-10 years with renewables, with green hydrogen, knowing exactly what's going on right now, because the gray hydrogen is very expensive today because of what's happening today. Volatility is a key, and we have the chance with this green hydrogen to be more secure, giving more security for actors in the market, because the price will be known for the next 10, 20, 30 years. That's also important. That's something that we don't have with the gray hydrogen. Thank you very much, and we'll continue. The next, because of our Mr. Aisuni from Vestas will give us, you can join the floor, please. I think we have enough place, so if you can still stay with us, if you don't, you have to go? Okay. Anyway. I will call to the floor also Mr. Jose Manuel Serra from ITQ and Mr. Kamal Hatout from the ONE and Mr. Jaja from INP. Please, can you join the floor as we're going to have the second part of this session at the same time, and maybe at the end, if you have time, we'll have some questions. We'll try to do it. Please. He wants to talk first? No, okay. Mr. Aisuni, please give us the point of view from Vestas, one of the big company involved in the wind since the beginning of the wind power in this world. So please, the floor is yours. And also, as you mentioned, you look at the price that was mentioned for the renewables. It was for solar PV. Maybe for the wind, we can have some other acts. Please, the floor is yours.
No pressure, Mr. Moulin. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Very pleased to be here in Marrakesh. Well, Vestas is a Danish turbine manufacturer. The company is many decades old, but we are the pioneers in the wind industry with a history in this field that extends to the late 70s from the last century. How to move this? Okay, just to give a nutshell on some figures, we are today close to 30,000 people around the world with a total combined capacity installed and under service exceeding 132 gigawatts and more than 82,000 turbines installed in the world in almost 90 countries. And with a revenue for the last year for 2021 of 16.6 billion euros as a company listed in the Copenhagen Stock Exchange. Well, this the remark that has just been made by Mr. Moulin and after my colleague and friend Amin Barrada, who I expected to see him during this venue here, it seems that we are the bad guys. 65% of the price of the green hydrogen is because of the energy production of the electricity that it's needed for the production of that hydrogen. Well, it happens that we are confronted to many economic, financial, and if I may, even moral dilemmas and trade-offs. Because as Mr. Moulin said, it was a visionary decision that the Kingdom of Morocco in 2009 made under the vision of His Majesty the King Mohammed VI of going the renewable energy path at a time that no one was making that bet. And it was not only related to cost, it was related to sovereignty, it was related to having a more sustainable development of our country. And this kind of decisions and this kind of inputs, unfortunately, Excel sheets cannot be factored in, but they do count. And I would like to highlight that for us, the transition towards the climate change is not something if we can do it profitably, but we have to bear in mind that although this profitability is something that we all have to seek, we have to be aware that we can, the transition towards a more sustainable development paradigm, and it has to be done in a more sustainable way, and that at some point in time should come at a price. So the subject of this discussion today was about the challenges of the renewable energy and its integration. I'm very happy to see that in this edition that we are fortunate enough to have it in person, not like the first one we did in December 2020, which was online. A discussion has evolved, and we do have identified usages of green hydrogen and who would be the potential off-takers and the benefits and the challenges that these offtakes and these usages would have. But we have to bear in mind that as of today in the worldwide, the energy use, electricity accounts for roughly 1/4 of that electricity, and wind is only 1%. So if we have to think about the scale at which investment and deployment has to happen in the next few years by 2030, it's really, I would like to use the word unsurmountable, but it's really challenging. It will require the mobilization of all stakeholders. And this is only if we were to replace the current sources of the current usages of electricity, let alone if we are talking about electrifying areas and industries and usages that have not been electrified so far. That will bring the challenge even further. So again, it's a matter of the penetration of the electricity in the different sectors, and we have different choices of electrification. We are talking about the mobility, we are talking about about the heating and the cooling, all of these sectors that have not been electrified yet, and which technology is evolving towards having it in place. So we think that, especially under recent circumstances and the juncture of the prices of fossil fuels plus the carbon taxation on carbon emissions, we think that green hydrogen can become competitive before the end of the decade. And if we are to provide the right incentives and the right guidelines to different industries, this is something that can happen very quickly. There are some technical challenges for sure, but these challenges need to be mutualized, and we need to get to the scale, as my precedent colleagues who intervened in this discussion have rightly indicated. The scale and would definitely provide this kind of advantages. This scale and this pace at which we need this mobilization to happen really needs a lot of things to be in place, and one of them is the standardization. This morning, the German Secretary of State highlighted, and I was delighted to hear from the Association of Ammonia. We have also to certify the different kinds of equipment that is going to be to use on those plants, so these equipment can also benefit from the scale of in its production. But for companies and the private sector and academia to test these equipment, we need to have the right definition of the kind of equipment and how it has to be used. And this has been key in the past, for example, in the definition of the gas sector. We need an evolution in the standardization and certification of equipment that can be used in the hydrogen industry, so that we can spur this evolution and this development without jeopardizing or compromising security and safety, not security, safety. Because hydrogen, we have to remind, is a very flammable gas, much more than methane, much more complex to manipulate because of the size of the molecule itself. So another vision is we need this fact of reducing costs is not going to happen by the fact of letting the time go by. We need to work on the prototyping, piloting, reduction of the risks between the different stakeholders. So the perception of the risk between the industry, investors, creditors, and users is duly done to not to compromise the evolution of the green hydrogen, its introduction in on the demand side. And I would like to highlight about the demand side and I mean, the fact that Morocco is in doubt, no one in the whole day has put it in doubt, but I would like to highlight something on the demand side. We have been talking most of the time about the demand from the import markets, which is fine. We have to highlight though that the demand, for example, the success of the renewable energy in Morocco is not based only on the production of the electricity from renewable sources, which is a fact, but that fact relies very heavily on a very important success story, which is the rural electrification. The rural electrification in Morocco that started in the year 2000 allowed for electricity to reach from 60% of the population to almost 100%. It's 98 point. You will have the figure better than me. It's roughly 99%. The fact of the electrification has created the demand for electricity and the services that go along with it, and that has allowed for the mix and the generation mix in Morocco to thrive and allow it to have the necessary size to be diversified. Something similar has to happen. We are focusing on specific usages. We do agree that the usages will have to be phased and staggered in time. And we have different business models that we are looking at. Things that will happen before is, for example, so far the production of green hydrogen was relying heavily on the extra production of existing renewable energy factories, plants. In the future, we will have fully dedicated renewable energy production for the sake of the production of green hydrogen. That's something that can happen in areas and countries where we have strong grids that can absorb this kind of transition of electrons through its network. And we think that with the evolution of time, we will come to a solution where the production of green hydrogen will be mixing or blending the two models of a co-located production of renewable energy and hydrogen, and another one with based on the grid. And of course, we expect to mobilize into the offshore. Today, we have different prototypes and solutions, especially in the North Sea, for the production of green hydrogen close to where it's needed in the north.
1 minute.
Okay, thank you. One last point I would like to highlight for the risk is that we need to define the roles for the different stakeholders. Each technology component or each component cannot bear the risk of the success of the whole project. We have to look at the figure of the system integrator. We Vestas, we are ready to take the role of not only supply and install the traditional scope of an OEM. We have developed our own solutions for the monitoring and operation of the whole value chain of the plant, from the production of electricity out of turbines, integration with PV, electrolyzers, and monitoring of the production. But for the sake of the success of these projects under PPP schemes, we think it's very important that we put in place the right partnership schemes and the right risk distribution to mitigate the risk perceived as the technology evolves. And this is basically the message and the vision that we have of our role in the future for the energy green hydrogen sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hassani, and thank you for focusing also on this point on hybrid solar and PV. You show how it is important to have both. We are going to ask Mr. Rademarker, Franz Joseph, because he's waiting. So excuse me because he's connected since. And thank you for your patience. And I know it's later in Germany, but please tell us about your point of view. You are involved in R&D, but also about what we're looking at, the challenges for the costs, but also for the storage, what can happen with this green hydrogen. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, Mr. Rademarker.
I thank you for the invitation. Can you hear me?
Exact, très bien. Very good.
Wonderful. I'm very happy to be with you. Of course, I would have preferred to be with you in Marrakesh, which is such a wonderful place. And I can add to what my colleagues told before. So we have a very important topic. Morocco is very good placed in the issue. Morocco is doing a lot to become a leader. But still, I think in all these debates, it's very important to be realistic. So we talk so much about the 1.5 degree aim, we talk about the 2-degree aim, and I think it can very well be that we will never make it with those aims. We talk about it, but on this earth, we talk so much, and on the level of the United Nations, we talk so much, and we have so wonderful plans, but the plans and reality very often are very difficult and very different issues. Now, looking at hydrogen, of course, the issue is that at the moment we are in a transition where we replace what we have by something else, getting the same, but we have a different way of producing it. So electricity is electricity, whether it's green or not. And hydrogen is hydrogen, whether it's green or not. Only the way of producing it is different, but the hydrogen is not different, and the electricity is not different. And up to now, the situation is of the character that the new way of producing it is more expensive. We talk now here about the chance that eventually that may change, but overall, for the time being, and not taking the climate issue into account, very often the fossil energy for a lot of applications is much more cheaper, is cost effective more than if we go via hydrogen. And that makes it very difficult in markets to develop these technologies, because we have a situation where it really is only a bargain if we take the climate issue into account. But on the level of the United Nations, the countries in development, the countries in industrialization processes, they have the right to increase their use of fossil energy, even if it creates environmental problems. And it should be the part of the rich countries to offer so much support and so much money into the process that eventually it becomes reasonable to take the environmental aspect stronger into account, even if the country is in development or is in the industrialization process. On the United Nations level, that is a big issue for UNIDO.
Mr. Rademarker,
because
if you have a presentation, can you share us? Can you share it?
I have a presentation, but I think we make it available. But for what I say now, the presentation is not so much of importance.
Okay.
So I think it's easier. I do it without the presentation, but it is there, and you can share it and you can put it on your sites. But I think we don't need it here.
Okay.
The point I want to make is that we, with an organization called Global Energy Solutions, we looked into the prospect 2050, 10 billion people. And how will the situation be concerning climate and energy? And what is the role of the different elements for a solution? And we say the issue we should be concerned with primarily is get the CO2 emissions down and use all the tools we have available. So if we talk about low carbon electricity, it need not necessarily be renewables. It can also be from fossil energy with carbon capture and usage or storage. And of course, it can be nuclear. And of course, it can be everything that is nature-based. So use all the options. The same is with hydrogen. So we are very careful with the word green hydrogen, because many people then think it must be renewables and electrolysers to come to the green hydrogen. And that is very much in the line of European regulation. But you can also produce blue hydrogen or turquoise hydrogen, and then carbon capture plays a major role. But we should really see to what extent we go with carbon capture and to what extent we go with renewables, because up to now, we don't think that we can solve the energy and climate problem with view to 2050 with the green hydrogen alone in the narrow terminology of the Europeans talking about renewable energy and using the electrolysers, because there is obviously a shortage in electrolysers, and it cannot be scaled to the extent needed if it would be the only tool we have. So we have to use the different tools, and in every site, in every state, be it now Morocco or be it Saudi Arabia, one always has to see what are the specific components available at that place and what is the solution we will end up with. What we identified is that almost everywhere at the moment, there is a huge concentration on ammonia. And this is similar in Morocco. And you can ask yourself, why do all people go for ammonia? And for instance, why do they not go for the hydrogen directly to export it? Or why do they not produce the methanol as a good solution? Why do they not go for synthetic fuels? Why do they this only in very remote places? There is a big project interesting for Germany in Chile with Siemens Energy and Porsche, and they produce in Chile the methanol. And they do it from wind energy, and the CO2 they use is from direct air capture. It's very expensive. Reasonably, you would take the CO2 from coal plants. On the globe, we have coal plants producing 10 billion tons of CO2 each year. We should do carbon capture, and then we can use that CO2 to produce synthetic fuels. We need urgently synthetic fuels because we have 1.35 billion cars with combustion engines. They produce 5 billion tons of CO2 a year. And ask yourself why in Morocco you don't produce on a, let's say, reasonable, payable way a fuel that comes from methanol. You could produce methanol gasoline, and you could put all your cars climate neutral by using this methanol gasoline, methanol diesel. You could do something very important for the world. You could create an unbelievable market. But why is nobody working on it? And the reason is that the way that Europe is regulating the synthetic fuels would make it very difficult for production from Morocco in this direction to export it to Europe. So the way the Europeans see the issue at the moment very much limits what is done and can be done globally. And I think that makes the danger higher that we not make it with the 2 degrees, because there are options that would help us, but for all kind of regulation reasons, we are not going to explore those options. And even in countries like Morocco, which would have so much potential to explore it, we not really explore it. But what I fear is at the end, we will pay a very high price for whatever reason, not using all the options that lie around and in which we should invest. So I think urgently we need the carbon capture at the coal plants. Urgently we need nature-based solutions to get CO2 out of the atmosphere. We can combine that with the hydrogen, which might be a blue hydrogen, to come to the synthetic fuels to solve the problem with all the combustion engine cars around in the world. So I think what we need is a much more open frame in thinking about the approaches available. And one thing is clear, and that is similar to the Montreal Protocol concerning the ozone layer problem. Humankind solved the ozone layer problem, but it was solved by the rich countries to pay the difference in price to the old solutions we had. These old solutions created the ozone layer problem. The rich countries made a deal with the developing countries and the countries in industrialization that they go to a new technology, but the difference cost was paid by the rich countries. I think if we want to have a chance on the globe, particularly also with everything that has to do with hydrogen, it will be very important to insist that the rich countries take the difference cost when going over from the fossil solutions to more greener solutions, because on the UN level, it's the right of countries in development and in industrialization to still increase their CO2 emissions. And the Chinese are doing that, the Indians are doing that. And if they talk about coal, then it's always coal without abating that they want eventually to get out of, but it's not coal with abating, which means with carbon capture and usage and storage. So this is the message I want to give. There's a lot of potential, particularly also in Morocco, but always considering the cost issue and the alternatives, and to do essential things for the climate.
Exactly.
Means essential transfers are needed, and that should be asked for. And it should not just be accepted that Europeans and others try to corner Africa into a renewable only corner.
No,
This
definitely.
is something to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ademarque. We can applaud, really, because what you said, you know, we're talking about green hydrogen, but as you mentioned, we have blue hydrogen. We have also looking for natural hydrogen. ONIM is working on that in the country. But also, as you mentioned, we are living in energy transition. We are in Africa having 600 million people without electricity today. Some countries have natural gas. I hope they will use this natural gas today for their own energy, electrification, energy use in their country first. And we have a huge program between Nigeria and Morocco to have natural gas pipeline for all the 12 countries, to connect all those countries and to have access to natural gas. To have access to natural gas is one thing. And Madame la Ministre said this morning, at the same time, we are looking at the costs. We are looking also how to use and to live this energy transition. No one can ask Africa, which is less than 2% of the greenhouse gas emission in the world to do more than what they can. We can support all this technology with this policy. And one point is that we are looking at all technologies. And what we are doing in this country is look at all possibilities. And of course, we're looking at the economy. Of course, we're looking at how we can develop our continent today, because it's a shame that half of the population don't have access to electricity today in this continent. Thank you. I would give the floor now to Mr. Jose Manuel Serra. Thank you very much for your patience also. And I think everyone is, we still have people. I know you have to leave. Thank you. Mr. Serra will talk about all the R&D in this field also and what you are doing here.
Yeah.
in Spain. Thank you.
So my slides can be shared. So thank you so much, General Director, for the introduction and for guiding us through this very interesting session. And also thank you to the organizers for having me here. So I'm coming from the ITQ, that stands for the Chemical Technology Institute. That is a joint center of the Polytechnic University of Valencia in Spain and the Spanish Research Council. The Spanish Research Council is the third R&D institution in Europe. So I'm gonna, my slides are on the screen now. Please, could you make it? Okay, I will keep on going, but please share the slides. So my idea of this presentation, of 5-minute presentation, is to show you through a small window, a short perspective of emerging technologies, still a low TRL, so I'm talking about readiness level of 5, 4, 6, that can be very interesting for increasing the energy efficiency of the power-to-X technologies. Well, I can do without
La présentation.
So the technologies are based typically on processes that can be integrated in the catalytic conversion of CO2. So in this case, we are talking about technology that can integrate the catalysis in an electrolyzer. So we can distinguish between the different electrolysis technologies. So the state of the art, those that can be already purchased from the market, although there is a shortage, so there is a very lack of units in the market, are typically PM and alkalines. So the high temperature electrolysis, typically based on ceramic electrolyzers, they can be operated at 500 degrees until 800 degrees. The very interesting part of these electrolysis components is that you can reduce the cost of the electricity per kilogram of hydrogen, because these systems are using heat. And in this case, if you have heat from solar heat or the heat coming from the catalysis components, then you can reduce by a factor 30 or 40% the demand of electricity. The other two problems that we observe in power-to-X in the pilot scale is a problem with my...
If you don't have the presentation, just to let them the time to upload it, we can maybe listen to Mr. Jaja. I don't know if you have a presentation.
If I had a presentation?
No, not you, but Mr. Jaja, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Est-ce qu'on a la présentation?
Vous l'avez?
Oui, d'accord. Donc on va écouter Monsieur Jaja si...
Vous l'envoyez tout de suite?
Simouline, d'accord. En attendant que la présentation soit prête. Si Mohamed Jaja. Alors, est-ce que ça c'est laquelle? Voilà, celle c'est celle sur les ports, a priori c'est celle qui vous concerne. On va écouter si Mohamed Jaja et ensuite, so excuse us please because we got a little bit problem. So we listen to si Mohamed Jaja and then we will go back to you. So thank you. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moulin, and I'm sorry I have prepared my presentation in French. So in this evening, I will be accept to speak in French.
Bon, ok, montez le micro au niveau de la bouche. Non, approchez votre micro, Voilà.
D'accord, d'accord, ok. Donc, bon, je vous remercie. Je suis vraiment désolé parce que j'avais préparé ma présentation en français dans la mesure où pour que partager avec vous ce que nous préparons par rapport à la transition énergétique au niveau des ports marocains, également d'être anticipatif par rapport à tout le monde a parlé tout à l'heure de la nécessité des prérequis pour que l'hydrogène, une fois produit, soit exporté. Et notre collègue tout à l'heure de Mazen a parlé d'un potentiel très important en termes d'exportation de l'hydrogène au Maroc. Donc tout ça, généralement, va passer par les ports. Et le Maroc dispose d'un patrimoine portuaire très important qui va lui permettre de, une fois adapté, à ces nouvelles énergies pour qu'ils soient traités dans les bonnes conditions. Mais avant tout ça, nous, au niveau de l'AMP, on s'est dit que, tiens, on doit déjà profiter des énergies renouvelables, étant donné que le Maroc dispose, comme j'avais dit, d'un potentiel que ce soit solaire, éolien très important. Nous avons des atlas qui ont été présentés tout à l'heure. Et c'est pour cela qu'on a mis toute une politique qui s'intègre dans une politique générale de l'AIP, à savoir la politique de l'environnement au niveau des ports nationaux. Alors, je ne vais pas m'attarder. Quelques chiffres par rapport à l'AIP. Nous sommes l'autorité portuaire parce que le secteur il est stratifié en 3 niveaux. Il y a l'État qui définit toute la stratégie. Il y a les autorités portuaires, y compris l'AIP, qui sont chargés de la mise en place de ces politiques. Il y a les opérateurs qui sont chargés de tout ce qui est prestations commerciales. Nous gérons quelques 37 ports avec un trafic qui dépasse les 90 millions de tonnes et une infrastructure quand même qui est importante. Parmi nos attributions, c'est la gestion des réseaux. C'est pour cela qu'on s'est dit que, tiens, il faut profiter de tout ce que nous avons pour assurer une transition énergétique des ports. Donc, j'avais dit, cette transition s'inscrit dans le cadre d'une politique plus générale, à savoir la responsabilité sociale et environnementale au niveau du port, qui autour de plusieurs objectifs, entre autres l'intégration des énergies renouvelables au niveau